This podcast is sponsored by Live.Word of Freeman J. Burns Realty. Are you looking to buy or sell a home or investment property in Charlotte, North Carolina, or any of the surrounding cities? If so, contact me. You can reach me by email at nitra@freemanjburns.com. That's Nitra, Nitra, at Freeman, the letter J, Burns.com. At Burns Realty, we are passionate about providing a world-class experience and building relationships that will last long after your real estate transaction.
Well, we're moving on up to the side, to a deluxe apartment in Sky. We're moving on up to the side. We finally got a piece of the pie.
Welcome to the next episode of
Live.Laugh.Word.
I am Chris Word.
And I'm Nitra.Word.
And I am going to be absolutely honest with you all today. We just bought a house and I almost lost my marriage.
What you mean you almost lost your marriage?
I almost lost my marriage. This thing was harder than I expected it to be.
Why
I
was
kid you not.
buying a house so hard for you?
Because
I didn't think it was that bad, personally, but explain.
Okay, I'll explain my part. Because when we started looking, first of all, let me just tell you the dates. Our lease was up in March. So for me, I thought we had until January, February to start looking for a house, considering the 30 to 45 day closing period and the date of our lease. And not to mention that the weather and people really starting to move from their homes later on after the winter.
Okay.
But I thought we had time. But
That's cutting it a little close.
Okay, my wife wanted us to start looking in August of 2016.
Oh, that's not true. Don't go all the way back until August. However, in November, December, that is a great time frame to start considering what side of town you want to move to. What kind of house
That's
would you
a fair
like?
point.
Where would you be? Do you mind this commute or that commute? I was just asking general questions.
That's a fair point, but still, to me, it seemed
And your
too
patience
early.
level was this small.
It was because
They
I
can't
was
see
like,
me, but
I'm
this
trying
small.
I'm trying to make it out of the 2016, and here you are talking about when we're gonna buy a house. Do I want to drive 15 minutes or 30 minutes? Do I want to be by the Taco Bell or by the Harris Teeter? And I'm like,
Taco Bell, really?
yeah, you're right. We don't eat Taco Bell. Shout out to organic food.
Oh
But
my
anyway,
goodness.
so then we finally found a house, which I think she tricked me on.
I
And
found the house
She found us
that
a
he
nice
did not
townhouse.
want.
She did. And I said, I don't want to be there. I really don't want to move into a townhouse. I don't want to move into that area. And she was like, well, there's a restaurant I want to go try. Let's go try out this barbecue restaurant I heard about. And I'm like, okay, cool. Barbecue sounds good. And then while we're sitting in the restaurant, she was like, you know, their townhouse is right across the street.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, she got me.
I got you good. You liked the area, didn't you? It was
I
a
do.
nice restaurant. It was a nice
do.
area. And you love your new house.
I do. I love my house. I absolutely love my house.
And your wife kept you on track.
She did. She
Okay,
did. We actually
thank
have
you.
extra time to move. We've closed. We started moving, and our lease on our apartment is still not up. So we even have time to kind of get that place organized. But the moral of that is it was harder than I thought on the looking and going to different homes. Do we want to buy new? Do we want to buy something already built with a family in it? What was I looking for? What were my must-haves versus her must-haves? It just became overwhelming at times. Paint colors and doorknobs and location and parking. It just became a lot of questions and overwhelming. I'll just be honest. At a certain point, I was overwhelmed. I'm like, this is too much.
Well, that's what you have a wife for, honey.
I do.
I was able to take over for you and
You're
find
right.
something perfect just for us. And I'll worry about the paint colors and the doorknobs.
You see why I love her? You see why I love her? It's statements just like that. But then, so on this podcast, we're going to talk about our experience with moving and how I myself underestimated the challenge of it, and
Yes,
how
he did.
the difficulties that we experienced through the moving process, the picking of the home, the actual going out and doing the mortgage process, going through closing and the whole due diligence period, inspections, appraisals, all of that process, And then actually, once you finally close and get the keys, now it's time to move. And it's a lot more than just moving that you normally did when you were single. This is moving as a married couple, and it just seemed to be 3 times as hard as it was when I moved by myself. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's easy when you're used to just throwing things in a box, and now you actually have to label things
And tape things.
and tape things and
That's
get
true.
proper moving equipment
That is
and
true.
box and wrap furniture up so it doesn't get scratched.
Yes.
All those steps and precautions that Chris literally fought me tooth and nail on every step of the way. Oh my goodness, as if he had never moved before.
Fair point. Fair point.
I don't know why we keep talking to each other in third person in this podcast, but maybe it's to help control the emotions we have toward each other. If I just talk about you as if you're not here,
You won't get frustrated.
I won't be
all
so
over again.
frustrated all over again. Exactly.
So what were some frustrations that you experienced? Let's kind of start from the beginning.
With the moving process or
Yeah.
the process of just buying?
The process of buying and finding a home.
Honestly, the process of finding a home was first for me, as far as frustrations, because I knew that I wanted to buy something soon and I wanted to find something soon. Where I think you were still contemplating, I don't want to buy a home right now. I'd rather put my money into investing and just rent. And I was kind of to the point where I'm like, we own several homes, but I would like to own a home of my own where I live. And I actually had to kind of put my foot down on that one to say, no, Chris, I want a home.
That's
And you're
true.
going to give it to me
That's true.
in 2017. So
That's true.
I'm happy that we finally reached that mark.
And I would say that part of it was I didn't want to buy a home. I felt like that was taking on a large amount of debt, and that would interrupt my or our ability to invest more and continue with our investing strategy. And then the other piece of that is I thought going into the winter time that not a lot of people move in the winter. Between probably October through March, people don't really move. They really kind of settle in, and then they start moving in the spring. So the inventory of homes and the options weren't going to be.
But here in
as-
Charlotte, that's been the complete opposite. Basically,
That's right.
inventory has been down since the summer because so many people are moving here and buying homes at such a rapid pace that no matter if it was summer or winter,
Okay.
the rate of moving was still the same here
That's
in
fair.
our location.
That's fair. And so I underestimated the homes that would be available and whether or not we would find something that we liked over those winter months, and also thinking we had time. I just underestimated the amount of time that it was going to take to buy. So I guess being a man or being me or whatever it was, I was stubborn, and I moved
Oh, you
slow.
admitted it? You were
I
what?
can admit
Say
it.
that one
I
more
can
time.
admit it. I found a house I love, so I can admit that I was stubborn.
Oh, thank you,
were
honey.
right. You get credit for that.
Oh, and I was right too. I got
Yes,
2 wins
yes.
in one sentence.
So once we found the home, shout out to Referrals at Freeman J. Burns Realty, who was was our broker. My wife
I
was
was
the
my own
broker on the
broker.
deal.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
But once we found that home, what about the process of putting in the offer and all of that? What did you
I
think?
found that part to be very easy. The part of putting in the offer, negotiating the contract, that was pretty standard.
You think so? Because I would say this: our place went on the market, I'll say on a Sunday. I'll just randomly throw out a date to say on Sunday.
Right.
You saw it when?
I saw it on that Friday.
So about 5 days later, 5 days later,
Yes.
we put in an offer when?
That Saturday.
So 6 days.
By the
into-
7th day, it was under contract.
By the 7th day, it was under contract. So it goes on the
Yes.
market on day 1. Day 6, we saw it. Day 7, it had a contract,
Correct.
our contract on it.
Correct.
And that's just how fast things moved in Charlotte.
Yes.
So here in this environment, you really can't move you really can't be slow about it. You have to make
Right.
a decision and be ready to go.
Can't drag your feet.
You can't drag your feet in the process of selecting and buying a home. And then what about the negotiation? I thought that
Well, because it's a seller's market, it doesn't give buyers much room to negotiate. As quick as that home went for us in 7 days, if it wasn't going to be us, then it was going to be someone else in the
Right.
next 3 to 4 days. So
Right.
them knowing that they have a lot of opportunity and a lot of buyers out there willing to buy their property,
Right.
it makes negotiating for the buyer side very strenuous,
Right.
and that it's hard to ask for so much. I mean, I think we were able to do a good job with getting them to contribute towards closing costs, and things of that nature, and also, being flexible with us because we were actually in our due diligence process while we were on our trip in South Africa,
Right.
and so they were able to wait for us to
close
to
instead of
close
closing in, like,
instead of closing while we were out of the country. So
Right, right.
they were flexible.
And I just want to bring that point up because I think several people may come in saying, "Oh, this is negotiation, so I'm gonna just throw my lowest offer out there and then kind of play this hardball negotiation game." But when you're in the seller's market, it's really you throw out your best offer, and then they'll come back and say no, or they'll come back and say, "I'll give you a little bit, but I'm not going to give you a lot." And you really have to be in a position to either accept it, because when we put our contract in 6 days, there was going to be another contract shortly behind ours. So it's kind of take it or leave it to a certain extent. So just kind of be aware of that whenever you all or who, our listeners going through
Depending
that
on what kind
process.
of market they're in.
Depending on what kind of market you're in. Yes,
Yes.
yes. So then we closed. We came back from South Africa. We landed on Thursday.
We landed Thursday about 4 o'clock in the evening.
Did some running around to the banks to get our money together in order to close. And then we went to the closing table on Friday.
The next day, yes.
And we closed and bought our home here in Charlotte. And what about moving now? Because we danced, we celebrated in the closing table. We actually sat down with the sellers, talked to them about the neighborhood, talked to them about their plans and why did they decided to sell this home. And then we closed and walked out of there smiling and dancing.
We did. And then it was on to the moving process, which I have to say, all that, all that. Chris and I have very differentiating points of views when it comes to moving.
Yes.
I've moved several times before, as I'm sure Chris has as well, being that, we were both traveling consultants before we settled down here. However, I'm used to being just a little bit more organized. I do pack everything up in boxes. I do label my boxes. I do get moving. What is that?
Saran wrap.
Saran wrap, moving
plastic
stuff to wrap up my furniture in to make sure it doesn't get scratched. And Chris is like old school method. Just
Yes.
throw everything in a box. You don't have to label it, and we don't need that many boxes, he tells me.
Yes.
Also, what do you need the saran wrap for? We're just going to put it on the truck and go. I'm like, but
I'm
what
gonna
if it gets scratched? What if it hits
Yep.
against something while they're unloading it? I don't want my furniture to get scratched. So we had a big debate in the aisle of Home Depot,
Yes.
in the moving department aisle,
Yes.
as he did not want to spend any money on moving
I was
supplies.
very limited. 'Cause I'm like, why are we even buying all of this? Why are we buying protective wrap for a table?
I needed the
glass
newspaper
table?
type wrap for my dishes and my plates. He's like, why do you need that? I'm like, duh, so they don't break.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't say duh, but yeah.
That's what I was thinking in my head, but I was trying to be nice.
But I was thinking, like, okay, for the dining room table, which is glass and circle or round, but we can wrap a cover. We can wrap that in cover.
But
And
in
for
what
me-
cover? He wanted to wrap it in my nice new duvet. Like, I do not want to wrap my nice new down comforter in the kitchen table. Like, that's two
And
different
then you slide
things.
it between the mattress and the box spring, and
No.
now it's protected.
No, all my stuff needs to be protected.
Okay.
And what's going to protect the cover from the bottom of the moving truck, which was filthy?
That's a fair point.
Okay.
That's a fair point.
So, no, that's not going to happen.
This probably took place, I will say, we celebrated when we got the keys, and then from that point on, I got the keys. Shout out to Jay-Z and DJ Khaled on that moment right there. But from that moment until we actually moved in the house, we were probably at odds with,
Because he didn't get it.
I didn't get it, and I thought we were spending money on stuff that we didn't need, and I had my plan as, quote-unquote, the man to move. I wanted to, if it didn't fit, if I can't, clothes stay on the hangers, just put them in the car. Boxes or covers, pillows, just put them in the car, because I'm going to just put it in the car, drive, take them out the car, put them in the room. But she wanted to put the pillows in a box and tape the box.
With the comforters and everything all together,
like,
the
who
moving people
puts
were going to come.
Comforters in a box.
Honey, if the moving people were coming, it was better to have everything boxed and labeled so when they came, we could just make one big trip instead of all these miniature trips you wanted to make back and forth. I know it
That's
sounds
fair.
good, but it's exhausting.
True.
And you got to the point where you were tired of driving back and forth. So I
That's
was
true.
really trying to help you out because I let you say if that's something you wanted to do, I will let you make 20 trips back and forth to the house if that's something you want to do. However, that's not anything I'm willing to do. I'm going to do it the conventional way. Pack up all my boxes so when the movers come, I can say, here's everything packed and labeled, and they can just bring it all to the house at once.
That's fair. And
Like normal people. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's fair. Because I would say that even after we boxed everything, and I sat there and watched it, like, okay, you really gonna put that in the box? We're gonna waste the box on covers and pillows, but I will give her all the credit because when they moved it, it was moved and it was in a box and it was labeled, and it made it easier when we went to look for it on the other end.
Oh, thank you,
Rather
honey.
than having just random stuff all over the place and doing it, making it more manual than it had to be. So, men, put your ego aside.
Ooh, what you say?
Put your ego aside and allow your wife or your significant other or your spouse to help you out and just make it a little easier for you.
I appreciate that so much because I really think that was the battle that we were having. I feel like you as the man felt like, I know how to move. How are you going to tell me how to
I'm a
move?
man.
I
Hear me
can
roar.
do this. And I'm like, no, honey, we need to do this, this, and this. And you kept telling me, no, I got this. This is how we're going to do it. And I even picked the moving date. You thought we were moving too soon. And I called the movers and everything. And after everything was set up, I think you now realize that
No,
we did the right thing.
We did, and I would absolutely say that we did. Shout out to the moving company, and I do not remember who they are or the name of the company, but I will say that they were very good with their services. They came in, we had them budgeted for 4 hours, and they knocked it out in 4 hours. They moved us and packed everything up, and all we did was just put a few things in our car, like suitcases that we had or small
Right.
things, but for the most part, all of the big stuff was moved in that one time, and they even set everything back up in terms
Yeah,
of
they broke down the beds and put them back
and
up
put
at the
them
new
back up.
house.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that helped out a lot because if I would have done it or I would have called some friends to do it, we would have been hanging off the back of a truck or trying to borrow a truck and then taking more time to set it up and move. And then, as the saying goes, once you feed people, they stop working and then the day is gone. So everything happened like she had it planned. And I would honestly say that once we got moved in, the stress was over. It was just like, we're in our home. And all of that animosity or tension left me.
Oh, good job, honey.
I was good after that point. And I'm absolutely happy with our house. Absolutely happy with our house.
Good. I'm glad you like it.
Good choice. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. So let's talk about the process of kind of the mortgage process. Was that scary for you? Like, what was it?
Oh, it was basically on you, so I wasn't scared at all.
So, okay, we'll give you a little insight to that. I believe right now, depending on the mortgage company that you go to, each social security number is allowed 4 mortgages underneath their name.
That rule has since then changed.
Well, like I said, depending on what bank you go to.
Oh, at the big
because
banks
if you
it's
go
for
to the
it,
big
yes.
banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they only allow one person, one social security number to have 4 mortgages. But if you go to other, maybe smaller, second tier mortgage banks or mortgage brokers, they can allow you to have up to 10 mortgages for one social security number. So if you're an investing mind, then you think, man, I can have 10 mortgages in my name. That allows me to have more investing possibilities. So just imagine having a 4-unit building, 10 mortgages, that's 40 units that you can have investing if you have the capital to do it. Now, scratch that point or to move forward. But for this property, Nitra and I decided that I will carry the mortgage so that we can clear up other room for future investments.
Opportunities, yes.
Opportunities that we come across. Now, I bring that up on a podcast because I think a lot of people will be in that discussion of my name has to be on the mortgage, and if it's not on the mortgage, then I don't own it, and it's your house. And as a married couple, you can get into some.
Oh, let's not get it twisted. My name is not on the mortgage. However, my name is on the deed
Yes.
to the house, which
Yes.
means that Chris cannot sell the house or do anything with the house without my approval, because I am
Right.
just as much an owner as he is,
Right.
just without the financial responsibility. Isn't
Right.
that awesome?
Well, you are 50% financially responsible, but the mortgage is in my name.
The mortgage is in your name, yes.
So just saying that on the podcast so that people can hear the different strategies that Nitra and I discuss and kind of what we decided to do for this.
And all these things we do are just to, like Chris said before, open up our finances so that we can invest more.
Yes.
And not mainly to do with the personal preference, but more so just a business strategy all around.
Exactly. I wouldn't want both of our names tied to one mortgage because that's one less investment property that we could buy whenever we come across that opportunity without a lot of hassle. So if you're able to finance it alone or with one person, then consider doing that, then saying both names have to be on the mortgage, both names are required to be on the deed.
Right.
But
Not
both
on the
names
mortgage.
don't have to be on the mortgage.
And this is something we practice across the board with all our investment, with all our properties, period.
Yes. Very rarely. I don't think any of them
No.
we are both on at the same time.
No.
It's either one or the other. But we decided to go for this property. We went with Movement Mortgage. Shout out to Movement and our loan officer, Brian Maddox, and Jennifer Rowland, I believe her last name is. But I want to talk about that process because I've heard that millennials do things a lot different than the generations before us. What I mean by that is, I think if you ask your parents or other people in the previous generations, they are unsure about doing a lot of business electronically in terms of sending your personal documents over email. They want to go to the bank and meet with the person face to face and share the documents and get copies of everything, and now you create this long paper trail. But what I've heard and in my conversation with Brian Maddox,
And in your experience, because how
and in
many
my
times did you
experience-
actually meet Brian? I don't think we went to his office not one time.
I don't even know where the man's office is.
Yeah, we did
met
not.
him one time, and from that point on, and that one time was at an investors meeting where we always see Brian, and we just kind of said, hey, this is the person that you're emailing back and forth. But from that point forward, we did all of our business electronically. After we went through the application process, which he sent me an email link for, and I completed it online, then I created a Dropbox account and shared it with him and with Jennifer, and everything that he requested of us, I put in the Dropbox account. And that's how we shared information. And it was very seamless for me because I could do it at midnight. I could do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could do it on my lunch break or whenever. Go get a file, scan it, put it in the Dropbox. And he could pull it whenever he was available.
Yeah, it made the process very efficient and effortless. I feel like it went very fast. It took us about a week and a half from beginning to end to get everything completed and done. And I think this was the fastest I've seen it go, even when doing our investment properties. It's never gone this fast.
I would agree. I think we were
Yeah.
close. We were almost at clear. We had one other thing, but after 2 weeks, we had our clear to close.
Clear to close. So that was awesome.
And yes, so before this, we handled a lot with Wells Fargo, and it took every single day of the 45 days or 30 days closing period that we had, almost to the wire. And they were either dragging their feet or requesting documents. But I'm bringing this point up because I want people to understand that there are other options out there than just
The big banks.
And you can look for other ways. Shout out to Movement Mortgage again. Now, what other piece you want to talk about this process of moving?
Besides you wanting to kill your wife, is there
I
something
didn't
else
say
you
I
wanted
want-
to talk
I'll say I
about?
almost lost my wife.
Oh,
because
okay.
this was just
I just had to clarify.
no, absolutely not. It was just
There is actually one other thing I want to bring up is that when buying a new house, even though you have everything in the house that we moved into was pretty much move-in ready, I think the part that we underestimated was creating a new house budget. And not a new house budget to go in and totally do a HGTV remodel, but just for those little things that you don't notice. Like when we moved in, there were 2 of the rooms that had ceiling fans, but then I noticed the ceiling fans did not have a lighting fixture, and there was no light for the room. I was like, oh, we have to go out and buy a ceiling fan that has lights, so that the room has some light.
Oh, that's how the conversation went.
Yeah, it went like that. That's how it's going to go down in history. Or the fact that the house needed to be just cleaned. It wasn't dirty, but just had someone else living there. I wanted to get the house totally deep clean before we moved in, so I did hire someone to come in and do that. But just those little expenses that honestly I was not thinking of when we moved in.
On top of the expense to actually move, because it was
an expense to move, like having a budget
cheap,
for the movers to come, to buy those little knickknacks, to change the locks. That was something Chris did immediately after closing. We went to Home Depot and bought new locks for all the entrances of the house, and he changed the locks immediately, but that's still a cost to be considered. So having a little small budget set aside besides just the amount that you're bringing to closing to close on the loan, but just to move in and be settled and say, okay, we're comfortable now in this house.
Yes, and I think having a difference between this is something that we have to do in order to move in comfortably versus these are some desires or things that we want to change over time. Like she said, changing the locks was the number one thing I wanted to do on the first day. Let's change the locks. Let's make it ours. But then let's talk about painting, because
painting is something I want to do, but I did realize that I don't feel like that's something that needs to be in the new house budget per se, because it's something we still haven't done yet, but it is definitely on my list of things I would like to do over time, but realizing that it doesn't have to be done right now.
But let's kind of be honest and dig into it a little bit, because when we were going through closing and leading up to that moment of closing, it was very much like HGTV was in my face. Meaning, when we walked through it, you were like, I want to paint this room. I want to change these cabinets.
As we were walking through closing, I could envision, how you envision your house, and you can see everything that you want. And I was taking mental notes, all those things I want to do.
Mental notes. Mental notes.
They were out loud and mental at the same time. I wanted you to be aware of them. But I think the main thing is I wanted you to know that these weren't things I had to do overnight, but they were things that I was keeping on my list. And I think the part that we kind of went back to back was you felt as if I was putting all this pressure for us to have all these things done within the first 30 days of living there.
I did.
And I was just saying these are things I would like to change over time.
Right.
They don't have to be changed right now, but and there are things that I would like to change.
And that's a good point, because what I heard was, I want this, and this has to be done. So for me, maybe it's a man thing, maybe it's a Chris thing, I don't know, but when you were saying, I want to change the kitchen, I want to paint the cabinets, I want new countertops and a new backsplash. And I'm like, what? That, to me, I just heard $15,000. That number just was ringing in my head. On top of painting the whole house. On top of, I want an office area. On top of, now we have to move. Now we have to change locks and do all of this. So it was a little more attention as well between us, because I felt like this is a nice move-in ready home. And here you all want to come in changing it, and not just change the small things. You want to change it with big things. And we had a lot of conversations about, well, what do we need to do before we move in? And what is something that we can do each month? Or what's our timeline for these huge changes? Mm-hmm. And to me, at this point, HGTV and all those home and growing shows and Fixer Upper and whatever, rehab, whoever they are.
Okay.
I hate them. I can't stand that channel.
Well, it's okay, because I don't even watch that channel. Pinterest is my favorite friend now.
And Pinterest, that's another one.
Oh, so as long as I have Pinterest, everything's good.
And she was dreaming about paint colors. And I'm going to put you out there.
Thank you for that.
She for a whole
I
week.
was like, I dreamed I painted this awful color, and it was just awful. But I'm glad I'm taking my time and choosing the paint color that I would like.
So it was a process. It was honestly a process, and there was a lot of communication. There was a lot of setting expectations, and We even had conversations about what are some must-haves in a house that you would like and what are must-haves that I would like. And let me just say this to all the fellas. I want you all to hear me say this. So listen very carefully.
Oh, is this about the man room thing?
No, this is something
Okay.
else. I will get to that. Listen very carefully to these words. At the end of the day, it is her house and you just live there.
Amen, my brother.
I say that because we had a lot of conversations about must-haves. What's a must-have for me? I wanted a man cave. Do I have a man cave? Anitra, do I have a man cave?
Hey, isn't your name on the mortgage? What does that tell me? You had the right to decide whether you want to sign for
so
this house or not.
What I'm saying is that my must-haves, all of my must-haves, are secondary to her must-haves. And I don't have a problem with that because I do want her to be happy and comfortable in her home. And I wasn't ready to go to bat for a man cave when she would much rather have certain things like a closet or whatever else stuff that she was like, I have to have this in my home. A double vanity, that was a big one for us in the owner suite. We wanted a double vanity, and both of us agreed, and we got that. But another thing that was on her list was the laundry room on the second floor, and we have that versus having it on the first floor. Now, am I willing to give up a double vanity or the laundry room on the second floor just to say I have a man cave? No. Do I miss the idea of a man cave? Yes. But at the same time, we're both happy with the choices that we make. So men, hear me again. It's her house. You just live there.
I like that.
You like that?
Yep.
That means, man, you're going to take the loss. Where are we at time? 25 minutes. Anything else we want to share with the people about moving and our experience with moving?
No, I would just like to say the takeaway from the whole process.
Takeaways.
Oh, not takeaways from the story, but from the whole process was just to take a moment and enjoy yourselves.
Yes.
Us realizing that us getting a house together is a new step.
Yes.
In our relationship and where we're going, and just to sit back, have a glass of wine, and look at all the boxes and say, I'm looking forward to what else there is to come.
That's true. I would say that once we got everything moved in, it was a little surreal to look around and think, like, this is our home.
Yes.
This is our address. This is our home that we both live in and enjoy, and not some place that we had to choose quickly for other reasons.
Not corporate housing.
Not corporate housing,
anything.
or not your place that I moved in, or whatever. This is ours.
Right.
And I'm excited to say that. But let me just ask you, what's one takeaway that you learned about the moving process that we can share? I have mine, but what's yours?
And one takeaway is to not overwhelm my husband. Just because I want all these things, I can keep some of them in my head, because if I say them all out loud, he feels the need to provide them all when it's not necessarily true. They can just be arbitrary wants that I have that can be fulfilled at a later date and not right now.
Whew. We have to work to get there. But I appreciate you saying that.
No, you're welcome.
That definitely is true. One of my takeaways, and I can say this from my perspective, is that at the end of the day, it's her house. I just live there.
Oh my gosh, really?
It is your house. I just live
Well,
there.
hopefully one day we can get you some house where you live there too.
I hope so too. I would like a man cave, and one day I'm gonna get it. But
You know, I can build you a little space in the attic, honey.
you see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know how much of a hassle that is to get up there, and how hot it is in the attic for me to sit there.
Well, it still be your personal space.
That is true. But as always, everyone, we hope you enjoyed the show. We wanted to share our experience with moving. We did just pick a nice home that we love, and we'll put a few pictures up on Instagram.
After I decorate.
Well, not of the inside, but we'll put a few pictures up of the outside because she wants to decorate. And P.S., she did come to me because she wanted to use a decorator to decorate, which is another thing. I was like, what?
But I've decided that I'm going to decorate it myself.
You're right. Small victories.
Oh, my goodness. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's wrap up here. But As always, thank you for listening, and you can follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Live.Laugh.Word. And if you have any questions about the process, if you would like any referrals for Brian, or shout out to Nitra Word at Freeman J. Burns Realty.
Oh, thank you,
need a
honey.
realtor broker, reach out to us at our email, live.laugh.word@gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time,
Yep. See you then.
see you in the streets.
Fish don't fry in the kitchen. Bees don't